I've been advised by my counsel to assert my constitutional right not to testify or answer questions related to the subject matter of this hearing.
Lois Lerner yesterday before the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. She gave her statement that she did nothing wrong and then refused to answer any questions, citing her Fifth Amendment right. Sitting across from her yesterday was Representative Paul Gosar. He's a Republican from Arizona. He's on that committee, and he joins us now. Representative Gosar, thanks for being here.
Oh, I'm happy to be on.
Well, now, can you help me out here? Because how do you make a statement and say, I didn't do anything wrong, I'm completely innocent, and now I'm not going to say anything because it might incriminate me? Square that circle for me.
Well, I'm not an attorney, but according to what the attorneys are saying is when you take the Fifth, you're not really entitled to give a statement. And when you give a statement, you're waiving your Fifth Amendment, and you should be able to take questions. And so I think that's why the hearing was actually recessed instead of adjourned, is to see when we're going to be recalling Ms. Lerner back to the stand.
And where does it stand now?
Well, they've been jockeying back and forth all night in regards to the attorney, so we'll find out sometime this morning.
Could that happen today?
I doubt that'll happen sometime today, but who knows? We may be called back to have to ask questions of Ms. Lerner.
Well, let me ask you how this unfolds, because, I mean, let's assume that you drag her back before the committee. And she says, no, I still am not going to say anything. I still take the Fifth. Could you then, find her in contempt of Congress?
Oh, absolutely. That's my understanding, is in contempt of the proceedings, because you took the oath of office, you took the Fifth, and you are compelled to give information to Congress.
All right, then what happens then? Should she get carted away in handcuffs? I mean, what happens when you're in contempt of Congress?
Well, I mean, you look at, we have an attorney general who's in a contempt of Congress. And
yeah, I don't see much happening to him.
Oh, I know. We're in court trying to get the information, which we will eventually get. The sad thing is the travesty that if you have nothing to hide, why wouldn't you share the information in front of the American people?
Representative Gosar, you sponsored a bill with your colleagues, Congressman Salmon and Schweikert, called the IRS Anti-Abuse Act, and if I'm quoting correctly, this will make it illegal to discriminate against organizations and individuals based on political affiliation and ideology by the IRS. How is that not already illegal?
Well, according to what we actually saw, the fall guy, Steve Miller, in this whole probe said, well, what we did wasn't illegal, and looking back at it, there may be a loophole there. And what this basically does is says that it is illegal to target groups and with political affiliations and ideology, and that this actually strengthens the ability for people to have recourse and makes it illegal and allows people to be fired for those actions, so that this is actually a remedy to that and gives more meat to the enforcement aspect in regards to the overreach of the IRS.
Congressman, I draw your attention to a Washington Post story today, which is, I think, sort of revisionist reporting, but it talks about the White House counsel Rumler and how she knew this was going to be a problem. And with this whole IRS thing, when it came out, was going to be a huge public relations nightmare, and that she summoned sort of the best and brightest of the Democratic Party for a PR bull session to try to figure out how they should spin this. Among those who were called in, Stephanie Gutter, Robert Gibbs, Anita Dunn, Paul Begala, and Mike McCurry. Now, I know that you couldn't call the White House counsel in because they would claim executive privilege. But these other folks who were involved in these very sensitive negotiations at the White House, as far as I know, are not currently White House employees. Would you have an interest in talking to them?
Oh, absolutely. We want to make sure that we get exactly what transpired here, because they got their hands caught in the cookie jar, and it's one scandal after the next here, Brian. And we want to make sure that we get to the bottom of this and hold people accountable. But this is atrocious. I mean, when you look at this extension, this intrusion started with the passing of Obamacare, and as my colleague Jim Jordan said, there was over 118 times in which Mr. Schulman actually went to the White House. And what did he talk about? The Easter egg roll? That's not exactly what transpired there. And in my testimony, we also uncovered a number of other targeting aspects. But what's going to happen is you see one catastrophe after another, one scandal after the next. And what you're going to see is the tie with the IRS being able to leak any information of your personal information And now you've got the IRS going to be going into your personal information with Obamacare, the
Right.
very things that you're going to be telling your physician, and they could leak everything. This is an overreach of the federal government, and we need to haul people in and making sure that political appointees and those that were involved in this are held accountable.
Let me just follow up. Are you saying that it is a good likelihood that Cutter, Gibbs, Dunn, Bagala, and McCurry might be called in?
There's a very, very good possibility if they were involved in the cover-up of the scheme here to make a presentation, because the White House knew about this. I mean, actually, we're seeing what now the fifth spin on this aspect from the White House. But we've seen 12 different revisions from the White House in Benghazi. It's a recurring nightmare and a recurring theme that has to come to an end.
Representative Paul Gosar is our guest, and he was endorsed by Sarah Palin and Sheriff Joe, so you know his street cred there.
I
want to play something that I know you've been busy, but yesterday over on the other side of that building there in the Senate, Senator Ted Cruz was challenged by John McCain. Now this is over a budget conference, and Senator McCain said, "It sounds like you don't trust the Republicans over in the House," and Senator Cruz said,
"Let me be clear, I don't trust the Republicans."
Well, now you're in the House, Congressman Gosar. Is your colleague, Senator Cruz, correct in not trusting you?
Well, trust is a series of promises kept, Brian, and to be honest with you, with what I've seen in Congress, why would the American public actually trust Congress, period?
Whether they got an R or a D at the end of the name.
There you have it.
See, now you know why he was endorsed by Sarah Palin and Sheriff Joe. Keeping it real. All right.
All right, so give me the end game on this IRS investigation. Where's it headed, do you think?
Well, I think what we need to do is always you gather the facts and making sure that people are held accountable. I suspect that the gravity of what's coming and Ms. Lerner will pay that penalty as many others will. But I think a special counsel is going to be one of those that is going to come forward where we actually convene that and actually hold people to the highest letter of the law.
Representative Gosar, one last quick follow-up. You said just a couple of responses ago that you want to call in everybody before the Oversight Committee who was involved with the cover-up. Can you explore that, just quickly explore that a little bit more? Do you think there has been a cover-up, and where did the cover-up originate?
Oh, absolutely. But, we've seen 5 now revisions about what transpired. It started in Ohio. It was only a couple rogue agents. Now we know one of the oversight people of this that choreographed it was Cindy Thomas, or at least is one that's the common denominator. We knew that people had warning signs all the way across the board and did nothing and turned their heads away. We actually have people that have lied in front of Congress. That is inappropriate, particularly when you're targeting individuals based upon whether it be a political or a religious type of.
So, do you think the White House is covering this up, or the Department of Treasury?
We now know that the White House counsel, as well as the deputy chief or the chief of staff, actually know differently than what was actually portrayed earlier in the week.
All right. Congressman Gosar, thank you so much for joining us. Greatly appreciated.
Brian and Larry, thanks for keeping news on the scene.
All right. And listen, and thank you. And I hope you'll come back when you have more stuff.
Absolutely would love to.
All right. Good.